Hello and welcome to the Rainbow Activation Code. I'm Justine Cerebrin, and today I am here with Rob GAUTHIER. He is a channel or communicator for the entities known as Treb, who's a benevolent reptilian hybrid, Artif, who is an ancient Pleiadian, and Metatron, just to name a few. He has his own radio show called the Enlightenment Evolution Network, which he invites Treb and Artif in on every first Wednesday of each month. You can check out more information on him at his website at etwhisperer.com. Thank you so much, Rob, for being here with me today, with us. I'm so excited to talk with you. Welcome.
Thanks for doing that.
Absolutely.
Um, okay, I was just listening to you and I want to find, um, oh, it looks like you recently did it on the 15th, the galactic channeling, extremely human-like.
Oh yeah, that was just one that we put out. I think we shot it last month, but we finally got it edited and out recently, last week or so.
That's cool. I haven't gotten to do the whole thing, but there's so much in that I have like just all these questions started like blowing up in my head about. So
Oh, yeah, it's one with my channeling sometimes, like with Ardif and Treb, I've worked with them so much. I communicate with them a lot. A lot of the beings and entities that I channel, every once in a while or just connect to here and there. With those beings, I only have access to the experience of listening back to the channeling because I don't connect directly with all of them. Some I do, but some not as much. So, like that race, honestly, I remember doing the editing for it, and I listened to it probably 2 or 3 times after I edit it. But that's the only part of even remember, and that wasn't even the information. It was just the energy of putting it together. So uh, I wish I remembered more of it. When I channel, I don't have conscious remembering, so I don't sit with the channeling a lot. I usually only get it on like a third party or a third person perspective, like an observer mode.
does it feel like you're does it feel like it's so layered and complex that it almost doesn't even translate into our language?
Yes. Yeah, a lot of the times, at least like with Ardif, you listen to his channeling and you can hear the same channeling 15 times each time you extract something new out of it. Part of that is because of the level or depth of energy he goes into. But even like with Ardif, I've found he's kind of like a master of doing this more than any of the other beings. But there's also information in the certain words he chooses to express, the way he expresses them, and the energy behind it. It's almost like it's encoded with tons of layers of different information. And my vocabulary isn't the greatest. English language isn't the greatest, but it definitely puts limits on it. I think that's why they do so much of that encoding for it, especially with Ardif. I mean, Ardif is so intense of an energy to try to break down the information. For me, it's easier because it goes through me when I channel. So when I listen back, I have a good understanding of it for the most part, at least mentally. But breaking down some of the more in-depth stuff that I've done, it's been difficult for me to get through all the layers of it. Uh, yeah, so it's pretty intense.
Interesting. I I I'd like to share something that maybe you have some insight on because I was just if you're up for that.
There we go. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you want to share. That'd be great.
Okay, cool. So one of my other speakers shared a story of an experience of her, I guess, astral travel, I think is the right term. And she found herself on this other dimension or planet where there were other humanoid like beings. Um, and they they could see her, and they're like she could hear, or she could sense that they were not wanting to recognize her, and they were afraid that they said to her, I'm getting it right, don't worry, she can't see us. And she says, yes, I can see you. I'm right here. You're right there. Why aren't you talking to me? And then when they realized that, she said it was like a veil just like closed, and she came right back to normal. Insight on what that might be?
Yeah, a lot of the time, especially when we're going into meditations or just being very mindful or starting to activate our third eye or just kind of in that zone, a lot of the time we kind of switch over into that other experience. And a lot of the time, like for me, example, whenever I do astral travel, I don't have control of it, but I've noticed that every time I do astral travel or every time I do connect that way, it takes me to an energy that is needed to be explored at that moment. So I bet you almost everything what happened with them was that when they were tapping into that energy, it took them to that place they needed to experience and to see. And when they did, it was something a lot of the higher dimensional beings or multidimensional beings, when they perceive us, they can see us because we're in a lower vibrational level. And it's a lot by example, like being on top of a lake in a boat. You know, you can look down through all the layers of the water and see the fish swimming, and they can look up, but they can't perceive you. They just see this boat in the water. So it's kind of like that with higher dimensional or extra dimensional beings. And when this humanoid person came into their area, their planet, their dimension, whatever it was, they're able to see it. And it's like, what the heck is this thing doing here? You know, I think it was a surprise to them just as much as it was for your friend. And when she said, yes, I can see you, that's pretty shocking for a lot of extra dimensional beings. Humans have multi-dimensional DNA, and not all races have that. So like Ardif, he's in the 6th density, but when he was in the 5th density or 6th dimension, he wasn't able to jump up into the 6th density. He was only able to perceive 5th density and lower. And once he got to 6th density, then he could look down to 5th density, but not higher. And as humans, we have that multi-dimensional DNA, so we can go up, and that's not very normal. I mean, it's pretty fascinating around the whole galaxy. There are a lot of races that do have multi-dimensional DNA, but not a lot of them have the range. Like some can go up a little or down a little, but with humans, we can go all the way up if we learn and teach ourselves how to tap into that energy.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I guess does that have anything to do with the light body? So if I think about the light body, it's an energetic imprint of ourselves. Could you describe what the light body is, and does that help us travel?
The light body itself, you know, and this is the problem too, again, with human language. There are so many people who say that word, but they mean different things. Some people mean the light body as our higher dimensional body. Some people mean the light body as the energy of our DNA. Some mean our etheric body. Some mean our chakra system. But we have all these different bodies within ourselves. We have physical body. We have an emotional body, a mental body, an auric body, a chakra body. We have all these different energies. And I think it's just depending on that person's energy or perspective of what that means. When you look at our higher dimensional body and our auric body, you know, like I said before, we've got the multi-dimensional DNA. So we have our physical body here in the 3rd and 4th density, or 4th and 5th dimension, kind of in between at this moment. And then you go to the next dimension up, the 5th density or higher 4th density, let's say, and you go there. We've got a body in the high 4th density. We've got one in the 5th density and 6th. But if we, with our human mind, perceive our 4th density body through meditation and third eye, or we tap into the 5th or 6th density body, we would see it as light, because there's nothing in that physical reality that can compare to something we understand. Ardif and Treb have said before, a fifth density being, when they transition to sixth density, the highest vibration or the highest speed vibration that we would have in our physical reality is light. So a fifth density being, their lightest and least dense energy is what they perceive as light. If you go into the sixth density, the very heaviest material, the most dense and solid material for sixth density is higher than the fifth density is light. So each density you go and each dimension you go, the material becomes so much less dense. And I think that's what people do when they're tapping into their light body. They're seeing their higher dimensional body, or they're seeing their auric field or chakra system. All of those are really essential for travel, for understanding yourself, for being able to meditate, but specifically for going into the higher dimensions without tapping into your chakra system, without tapping into your auric field, and without tapping into your multidimensionality. There's no way you could go through an astral travel, or go into your dream state, or go in between densities, or in actual other densities and dimensions.
Wow. How would you describe the Merkaba vehicle plane?
This has been talked about by a lot of people in a lot of different ways. I don't think any way that people describe it is necessarily wrong, but this actually came to myself and Kalina just recently, kind of how things work in the energetic sorts, okay? Now, to explain this, I have to kind of explain in depth how consciousness works, but we have our lower fractal consciousness, and that's our self, that's our day-to-day person. And then we have our higher fractal consciousness, which is enveloping all the higher dimensional selves plus some. So when you see our energy, we're just a small part. We're like 15 to 20% of the whole soul essence. So when you think of Rob as an entire being, only 15% of him is down here right now inside the body. The other 85% is in the higher self. And the way that would look energetically would be a pyramid, like a pyramid going this way. But between the higher self and the lower fractal consciousness, there's a space. And it's very complex, and I'll kind of, I'll try to explain it in the simplest way, but basically the space that's between the higher fractal consciousness and lower fractal consciousness are probabilities. That probability is in liquid form. So whenever we decide on something, whenever we have a belief, whenever we have thought energy, whenever we act on something, it kind of pulls that probability out of the ether and puts it into reality from a mechanism that Ardif calls the twin soul, which is a whole other thing that's difficult to talk about. And then you've got the oversouled self, and this is another energy in another dimension. And this is where all of myself plus tens of thousands of other beings who live in fourth density, fifth density, first and second density, sixth density, they all inhabit this oversoul, which would be equivalent to our past lives, our future lives, our parallel lives. And all of those bodies are in that one energy vessel. The way their energy connects to us is into our higher self from a portal that would look like an upside down pyramid or an upside down triangle. And it also has space between. And that space is no longer probabilities, but it's energy, it's ether, it's physical reality, all the things that create the projected physical reality. So if you separate these two triangles facing opposite ways in a three-dimensional form, you have a Merkaba. And that Merkaba is not just a vehicle, it's where our higher self meets with all the other forces in the cosmos, anything in physical reality with higher consciousness. So what it represents to me when people talk about traveling with the Merkaba vehicle, it means they're going so high into their higher self that they're able to connect with all the fractals of energy that connect, that create co-creations, and they're utilizing that to go to astral projections or to go visit other planets in higher dimensional bodies. By doing this, you can literally go into your higher dimensional body and experience. Everybody does that every day anyway. You go to bed at night, you sleep, you see other beings and other planets. It's not your it's not always your imagination. Most of the time when you're doing that, you're actually experiencing it. You're just doing it in your higher dimensional body. That's why it feels so different. That's why you experience it so much different.
Okay, interesting. That's really clear. Yeah. I think about doing that, and it kind of it invokes a lot of fear in me to do that. Do you recommend um, that people go to other planets and go and explore that stuff? And do you think that there are malevolent beings? What would their agenda be?
So Ardif and Treb, they talk about this a lot. It's something that scares a lot of people. Yes, there are malevolent beings. Yes, there are benevolent beings. There's everything in between. There's actually a system that Ardif and Treb use to discern where a being is energetically in the scale. And a lot of people think, well, malevolent beings means that they can't be in higher dimension because they're not higher vibrational. Well, that's incorrect too. Densities, dimensions, all of those things are evolution. And the universe doesn't see you as good or bad. They just see you as a being who is using physical reality as a tool of evolution. So to your oversoul, to the universe, it doesn't care if you're good or bad. It doesn't care if you're happy or sad. It only cares that you grow. You know, just because you're a negative being doesn't mean you have to be in those lower dimensions or lower vibrations. The universe doesn't really care. So when you're astral projecting, when you're traveling in any dimension, in any vibration, you can always bump into negative or positive beings. And the scales Treb and Ardif use are type 1s, type 2s. Type 1s are benevolent beings who never would step on your free will. They look above themselves energetically for inspiration. They look below themselves to redistribute their own inspiration to others. And then the type 2 is a huge spectrum, pretty much just like humans are. You have the very loving, benevolent, who don't fully see their oneness, but they still try not to step on the free will. They still love others. They try to look above themselves and below themselves, all the way to those who are completely malevolent and they only look below themselves so that they can dominate, you know, the very typical bad guy energy from the malevolence. So you have that whole spectrum. And when you travel in the astral state, you can meet up with those energies. But the one fear that everyone has is, if I do that, will I become affected? Can I be hurt? Can I have my soul hurt, destroyed, parts of myself taken away? One thing Ardif and Treb always have said that really resonated with me: when you're connecting to your higher dimensional self, first of all, you're bigger than you are energetically. So you have more energy of power. You have more energy, vibrational resistance against others. But also, when you're in that state, to be in that state for a human being, you have to really be in touch with yourself. Most people don't just have natural psychic networking. They have to earn that, and they earn that by going through their emotions, by acting on their excitements, by meditating for a long time. So just to be able to be in a position to go out into the cosmos through astral travel, you have to already have done a lot of work on yourself. And if that's the case, that means you're tapping into that part of your higher self. Now, Ardif is a logic-based instinct. I mean, he's a love-based being too, but he tries to appeal to the logic side of humans in a lot of ways. So he gave an example. He said the worst being in the galaxy at this point, ones that most humans can meet in their astral travels or dream states, are going to be alpha draconian reptilian consciousness. They're 6 density. Their consciousness is huge. They're very linked up to malevolence, violence, whatever they feel they need to do in order to achieve their dilemma or their own progress in their expansion. So those beings are well known to be the badasses of the galaxy. Okay. And even with those beings, we're so small as humans that we automatically fear them. But when you're connected to your higher self and all the way up to your oversoul, then you're connecting to a seventh density energy. Your oversoul houses thousands of sixth density consciousnesses. So when you're connecting all the way up to yourself, you're literally at least 1,000 times more powerful energetically than this alpha draconian being is. So when you're really tapping into yourself, you have nothing to fear. When you're in Earth, you're in a big, clunky, dense body, and you're in a polarity and in a vibrational frequency where everything can and will happen when you create that energy. But in the astral, all of that polarity is kind of left behind you, at least when it comes to the physical body. When you're into that higher dimensional body, there's not going to be the death that occurs, the pain that occurs, the physical fighting and possible trauma to the body. So honestly, there's nothing really to be afraid of. The only thing I would say in caution, if you're worried about doing those things, there's a reason for that. You got to examine your own energy of beliefs. You have to examine the energies of what is causing that fear. And before you do astral travel, make sure you really look at that. If you don't, you're going to go out there with fear already in your auric field, and you're going to pull in that experience for yourself. It's just like going to the top of a mall and screaming out free money. You know, you're going to bring everyone in who wants that money. And when you do that with the universe, hey, I'm afraid of big, bad, scary entities. You're going to bring them right back into you. You know, it's like a feeding bell. They can feel that. Those entities feel that fear. They're attracted to it, you know?
Yes, totally. What about DNA activation and our kind of human growth or evolution purpose?
Absolutely. First, to understand growth evolution, I think a lot of people should understand it's not one thing or the other. A lot of people say, you know, we're souls having a spiritual, loving journey, and that's what we are. And other people say, no, we're evolving as physical forms. And to me, you know, everything has their polar opposites, and usually you'll find resonance and truth somewhere in the middle. So the soul evolution is the same way. We're physical entities that inhabit a physical universe that are driven by a soul's desire to evolve. So all the oversouls in the Earth Collective, when they first came around, they all said, hey, we're going to have an experience where we create this planet within a solar system, co-creating with all these other beings that are other planets and the star. And we're going to have a very polarized experience. We're going to have resistance, and through that resistance, we'll learn. And all the souls agree. So they join together and they create the physical embodiment of the planet, all the souls put together. And that's, you know, if you look at every being who's ever lived on Earth, whoever will live on Earth, including the animals, the rocks, the trees, the wind, all of that sum total is the physical planet itself. So we go to that experience. The soul says, okay, I need to be able to have the experience of what it is to be a planet. So what's the first part of evolution? You look at linear time, it's the creation of our solar system. Rocks come together, it forms. Our soul does that. But once that's done, we need more experience. We need new experience. We're driven by a desire to grow and expand. So the soul wants expansion, and it creates a physical experience where it can expand within the rules, the regulations, and laws of that universe. So now we've got this growing planet that has water where everything's cooled down and life begins. So the second density journey starts. The first density was where we were water, fire, wind, electricity, ether, all of the elemental energy. And now we go into microbiotic life. And then the planet evolves from there. Very small animals from a microbiotic life to more complex. And all of that's driven, yes, by science, the energy behind the evolution of changes, things needing to adapt to their environment. But energetically, it's that soul's desire to transmute. People who live on Earth aren't here because we just needed to be here. It's because our soul said we want an experience, and only physical reality can give us that experience. So boom, we create this experience and we evolve. We look at just human history from caveman till now. Each part of the evolution shows you a desire underneath to have more. What did cavemen do? They socialized, they hunted, they gathered, and they died. Their lives were very short. The more family dynamic that came in, the more trading and communication with other tribes came in, the longer the life got, until we're at where we're at now. Now every human can specialize in something so different from everyone else and put their whole life into just exploring that one thing. When back then, everyone had to do the same thing and do it all together. So you see this progression. Right. That energy is a big part of that. Now, I think I've went way far away from the question. What did you specifically talk about? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's bringing us to our evolution and kind of like what's next. What do you see and feel is or can you vision out for us what you see coming next?
Absolutely. So, and that's why I set that all up. Thank you. Right. So now think about the steps, the levels. There are densities. Each one of them have a step. Mankind, humanity, womankind, and mankind together, they all grew up through this energy of knowing yourself. The third density is the same thing as the third chakra. It's self-exploration. Now we're getting ready to evolve to a whole new place. We have to take this energy and put it somewhere else. So dimensionally and energetically, we have to shift to another thing. The next place of our evolution is fourth density. And the fourth density, just like the third correlates with the third chakra, fourth with the fourth, we start integrating our heart. And not just love. I know a lot of people don't like the whole thing where, you got to love everybody, and that's fine. But that's where we're going as an entire race. We have to learn how to love each other. We have to learn how to love ourselves. We have to learn how to communicate as a whole. No more division, no more separation. So that's the next leg of the journey. And we're right at the front line of this. We're just in the graduating class of third density and starting the fourth density. I remember too, you had asked about DNA activation and how that plays a part. Yeah. So we have all these different DNAs from all the different races who manipulated our DNAs throughout history, starting with the Anunnaki, long time ago. They made the very first manipulation. And after that, we received 12 different DNAs from 7 different races. 5 of them were 50% hybrids. 2 of them were kind of pure races, for a lack of better terms. So out of those 7 races, we got 12 different parts of DNA. And each of those activate in different levels. Right now, most humans have activated their Pleiadian or Arcturian or Sirian energies within their DNA because they're activating that part of their own self. All of us have all 12 of these races, but depending on what's in your auric field, your vibrational tell-all, that's what activates the specific DNA that's necessary. That's why you see people who are very connected to reptilian energies. You see people who are connected to very intellectual, mathematical energy, or very love and light style of energy, or very balanced energies. And all of those are activating the parts of their own DNA that will help them grow into that version of person through their soul, vibrating the energy outward into their auric field. And that auric field vibrates in the physical body and creates DNA activation. If you ever look at the length or the wavelengths between someone who's in a state of love and happiness, and you look at their wavelengths both in the brain and in the physical body of someone who's in fear, you notice the very tight and high wave bands, almost like a gamma ray compared to UV light ray. The love energy would be like a gamma ray. It's very high and very close bands. So imagine that energy going through your whole body. It's activating and touching all these different parts of your DNA. It activates, touches, and engages way more surface area of a DNA than a fear energy would, which is a slow and long winding wave, which barely touches any parts of your DNA. So those who are really living in not just I love you, I love everybody energy, but excitement energy, happiness, a kind of energy where they're glad to be alive, that perpetual excitement, love energy is activating. And once that activation does occur, within not just one of us or a group of us, but all the humans on Earth, then it sends all of our energy into the next step of our evolution. And the next step of our evolution is very special because it's not just about exploring yourself. We don't just get a jump in energy, but we integrate more consciousness from the higher self to the lower self, and we're able to jump up dimensionally, which means we will be less like we are now as humans and more like we are in the lower levels of our dream state. We have less physicality, we have less pain, we have less sickness and illness, we have more intuition. Think when you're in a dream, you walk by a house and you know in your conscious mind after you wake up, I've never seen that house in my life ever. But in your dream, you walk by and you know everything about it. Hey, so-and-so lives here. I knew this person from so-and-so. Right. That's your sixth sense. That's your intuition. That's your fourth density or higher density energies. We get that once we graduate. A lot of people right now are arguing about the fact, when will this happen? Some people say 2012. Some people say it's happening in the next 2 years or before 2021. It happens individually first. Each of us have to go through our own journey to find our vibration. And once the collective tips towards that energy, that's when the whole of humanity will start feeling it.
That makes so much sense. You really put that together in a way that I've never thought of or heard of before.
Absolutely. I've had a good guides with me. Treb and Ardif, I know I'm extremely biased when I say it. Treb is great when it comes to love and relationships in human life. Ardif comes with a very intense, deep information that kind of ties those things together for me. And ever since I met him, I've been having those aha moments every day. It's just like, wow.
So cool.
Yeah.
And Treb is a reptilian.
Yes.
Right? And is
he
related to the other reptilian you were talking about?
Yeah, he is reptilian. In fact, he's actually a reptilian-human hybrid, and that's why they've nicknamed a benevolent reptilian-human hybrid. So Treb's race is actually more related to humans than they are reptilians, like those Alpha Draconians. Basically, a race that is the future version of humans. Think about it like this. We have so many variable timelines. Out of all those timelines, we leave Earth in groups and inhabit other star systems. One of the probable future human races is called the Nihal. And they go to a star called Beta Leporis, and they change. You know, like when you go to a different planet, your physical appearance changes, your DNA changes because your consciousness shifts. You're now creating with a different planet body, which means two consciousnesses kind of merge together. So these are very short, brown-skinned, like a golden brown-skinned beings. And these beings are really, really psychic, and they're like future relatives of altered humans. Anyway, they continue going forward, and they create hybrids. They're master geneticists, and they create a hybrid of their own DNA with an animal that's reptilian. That creates Treb's race. So Treb's race grows, and now they're into fifth density, and they're able to communicate. Treb said there were other entities that had communicated with the Yits, we call them. That's just kind of the nickname my friend Jefferson gave him. But and it's because of his whole name, Trebor Yitney. So the Yit stands for the actual race. So the Yits, when they created their communication with humans, it wasn't long ago, but I was one of the first beings to connect and share that connection publicly. when I did that, there was a lot of hatred for reptilian energy, and I still bump into that a lot.
Yeah. I have you heard of William Henry's work on the rainbow light body? You know who William Henry is?
No, it's weird, but I don't know. I know a handful of channelers just because I've worked with them doing events and stuff, but I don't know a lot about a lot of the work that's out there just because I spend so much time with Treb and Ardif.
Totally, that's what I would do too. I've just been researching this rainbow light body stuff. It just keeps coming through in my visions and meditations, and so through the research I found this man's work, and I can't remember if he directly said it or I'm just connecting the dots, but he was connecting the kind of the concepts that we're discussing now in relationship to Jesus and these old religious paintings where you see these like rainbow bodies, and it's like this Merkaba travel thing that we're in, and then he references a phrase about I'm not familiar with the Bible or scripture. It's something about loving and having like the purpose of life or something is to be in full love and acceptance of our brothers and neighbors.
Yeah.
And then so that really made me think, it's our neighbors that are on the other planets and in the other dimensions. And if we can have peace, if we could just get to a place on earth where we felt that way, then it would just be so much easier to have that love and acceptance and understanding for the other races, of galactic races, I guess. Yeah.
I agree. I think that's beautiful. And I think, from what I understand with Treb and Ardif and just intuitively feel, we'll get our opportunity to do that, but we have to start loving ourselves first because, there's still so much discrimination, so much hatred and war right here on our own planet that these ETs are like, we are not going to come down and talk to you guys till you settle your stuff out. So they're kind of waiting for at least the larger percentage. But if you look at the whole world in whole, most humans are good. They're not bad, even if they're not saints or not loving or not caring. They, in general, don't go out of their way to do harm. You know what I mean? It's a small percentage, and most of those are the people who have money, who have power, and militaries behind them. The people who are just living day to day, those are the people who want peace. People who have to go to work every day to the 9-to-5 job, a lot of people don't like the job they're doing. So why do they want to make more misery in their life than what they feel they already have on their plate when they could just enjoy everything? So I agree. Once we get to that level, we will see all sorts of different races, and it'll be hard at first, but I think the first contact protocol energy is going to be around races that are similar to us, so that, one step at a time, right? We first figure out our own stuff, then we deal with ETs that are similar enough for us to understand and not freak out too bad. And then by the time we get really going, then we'll have Treb's race down here, the big reptilian, 7 to 8 foot beings standing right next to you. And then we'll be okay, then we'll be able to deal with those guys.
What would that be like? So if Treb was sitting next to me right now, that would be so cool. Would it be like I could touch his skin and I could feel him in like my form and your form?
With Treb, he is 5th density, so he's like 2 dimensions above us already. I've been able to touch him, but I can't do it in my body. I've got to go into an astral projected state to do that. That's like when I'm channeling Treb or Ardif, then I'm hanging out with Treb in the astral state. I've got to exit my body and go into my 5th density body, or at least the high 4th density, and he can come down sometimes. But most of the time I'm going at least to the bottom of the 5th density, energetically speaking, and into that certain physical body in order to physically exchange. Physically, in the 5th density, he's just as physical as you and I am. He's got skin, he's got teeth, he's got clothing he wears, he's got a tail, fingers, toes. the whole shebang. But from our perspective, if we looked at him, like he could be sitting right next to me right now, and I would be able to feel him. I would be able to feel that energy. As an intuitive being, I could feel him. But physically, even if he touched me, his body is made of such light material from that dimension, you know, it would go, if he touched me, his finger would go right through me. A lot of people, like when they look at ghosts, if you believe in the apparition ghost energy, the apparition is the very heaviest light energy that we can perceive. And that's because we're right here energetically and they're right here. Treb's up here, you know what I mean? Okay. So those ghosts are easy to perceive and see, but we got to get our energy up a lot higher to see Treb.
Ah, yes. Interesting. Yeah. What's going on with the ghosts?
What's that?
What's going on with the ghosts?
With the ghost?
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, we've got our dimension here, our third density, and then, well, we're actually in fourth density, but because our souls aren't that far evolved, we create a version of third density. So I always say third because that's really what we experience right now. So we're in third density, and here's fourth density, here's fifth, and here's sixth. In between each of those densities, there's a mid-level vibration. And it's just like a radio when you're switching channels. You can go from 101.0 to 102.0, but there's 101.1, 101.3, all the way through. There are these partial. So third density and fourth density, the thin line that divides them is the energy where beings go when they leave their physical body, but before they inhabit another body. So when people die, they're going between third and fourth density. And when they come back into the body, they go to third. And in this level, they're able to interact with beings who are higher dimensionals. And that's why people say when they die, they see angels or family members or light beings, you know, God. They see all this energy because it's higher dimensional energy than what we live in our bodies. Plus, they're reintegrating into their higher fractal consciousness. So they're absorbing not just information, but a higher perspective to see that information with. That's why you learn so much in the afterlife. That's why you connect with these other beings after you die. When you go back into your life in the physical body, then you just go back and you start all over again.
Thank you. Is there anything else you want to add or share?
The only thing I'll add is, each of us have our own journey. It's easy to look at another person's experience and either take it as your own truth instantly or dismiss it instantly. One thing that I've learned is everything is possible. So when you hear someone who tells you this experience is really good and you want to just jump into it, try to keep yourself in a reserved position using that discernment and say, this is possible and it feels right, but explore it a little bit. When you explore, you're going to know if that's right for you. The same way with things that aren't feeling right off the bat great. The judgments that we have on others' experience is actually a judgment and wisdom. And the judgment from wisdom is saying, this is right, this is wrong. When we turn ourselves into polarized beings or people who live in black and white and only in absolutes, we're going to get a lot of experiences reflected back to us. So if it's possible on subjects that are important to you, try to always remain open to possibilities, but know that when the moment comes, you'll know what you feel. And it doesn't mean that anything else is wrong or right, but this is a theme that keeps being repeated back over and over, reflected back to myself and Kalina, my fiance, all the time that we deal with energies of new things that we find or old things that come back up. We always find ourselves reminding ourselves not to go into judgment mode, In this part of our experience in the fourth density growth, the way that we get more consciousness added to our bodies and our lower selves is going through the process of connecting. We can never connect if we're black or white about our energy. We have to be a little of both. We have to be black and white. We have to be able to go both ways on things. So just kind of, I feel it's important for people to hear that, because this is a different part of our stage of evolution, and we have to start living in that energy in order to graduate into that energy more permanently.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It was really good to talk with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you too, Justine. I appreciate it. It's beautiful. Thank you for allowing me to chat with you. It's been great. I hope anyone who hears what we talked about tonight, even if one thing makes their life easier, better, or more exciting, then it was well worth time and energy. So thank you for allowing that co-creation.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for watching the Rainbow Activation Code. And I will have your links listed below so I can send people back to find you and learn more about your work and dive deeper into all the other content that you share with the world, which I'm so grateful for.
Well, thank you. What you're doing is important by getting all these different people talking about subjects that are related by a thread of energy, but have different perspectives and different topics. It helps people be able to go through a lot of information in a very quick way. So thank you for doing what you're doing too. I love being a part of it.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Really appreciate it. I'll be in touch with you soon and have a wonderful evening.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for watching the Rainbow Activation Code. I hope you're enjoying this series. If you're connecting with the speaker, please click on the links below so you can reconnect with them and learn more about them. And if you like this series in general, please share, like, or subscribe below. Thank you so much.